Hi, and welcome to the Cocktail Crew. I'm Samantha,
Hi, I'm Hazel.
and today we're talking about burnout. And today we have a special guest joining us on this podcast.
We certainly do, and he's been a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, for over 30 years, I believe, since I met him in Dubai. It's Dr. Raymond Hamden, who is a globally respected clinical and forensic psychologist with more than 5 decades of experience working across the US, the Middle East, and Europe. He's consulted for the United Nations, advised national governments, and worked with correctional systems in the US and recovery centres. And I'm just overwhelmed that he's agreed to do this for us. He's such a great guy. So, Sam.
Fantastic. Dr. Hamden also is the author of Balanced for Life Before Burnout, which is a groundbreaking model integrating psychological, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being to prevent and treat burnout before it leads to breakdown. And today he's here to help us unpack what burnout really is, how it sneaks into our lives, it does it when we least expect it, and most importantly, how we can overcome it with clarity, care, and courage.
And Dr. Raymond Hamden is the best guy to explain things easily for you to understand. So excited to have him here. Dr. Hamdan, over to you.
Thank you so much for letting me hear my eulogy before I die. This is great. Uh, do you girls also do weddings and things like that too?
We could be
Open to offers.
That would be a real balance. Yeah, good. Well, it's so delightful to be here. Thank you so much, and thank you for technology that lets us sit together
yeah,
anywhere in the world. This is brilliant. I mean,
exactly.
of course, I'm from the generation where we still had rotary telephones
Yeah,
when
Yeah,
I was
so did
born.
I.
remember them
But
well.
there was
Remember them.
people that still had the crank phones when I was born in 1949 in southern West Virginia, and
Don't
life
know what
there
that
was
is.
much different. Today we write about things like balance for life, but that was a way of life back then. Balancing your life was a way of life. They didn't have the TVs, they didn't have the games, they didn't have the distractions that could be destructive to family unity, to community unity.
Probably a better life.
People had time to do their housework, to go to their businesses, to meet
Yeah.
with each other. The extended family was not just your relatives, it was your neighbors. And we took care of each other back in those days. It was brilliant. My parents didn't have to worry if we wanted to walk downtown. We were in a small town, but they didn't have any trouble because they knew if I got into trouble, somebody would be there to correct me.
Yeah.
That's just the way the community worked. So we had the benefit of enjoying life that we thought was normal because it was normal. That was our way of life. Today we have to do research on going back to that. So the idea of balance for life is encompassing four things: daily work, play, love, and worship. And work is being productive, where you make contributions to your community. It could be an earned income. It could be doing volunteer work. It could also be a student, because you're preparing to take part in society and to generate energy in society that will be beneficial for everyone. And also, being a house parent is work, is part of being productive and contribution. I used to hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't do anything, I'm just a housewife." And my eyes would just open up. So, what do you mean you don't do anything? You don't even have a vacation. Even when you're on vacation, you got to worry about the kids, what they're going to wear, if they're swimming in the right swimming pool, if they're going to be eating, and also is the housekeeping service of the hotel where you're staying doing the right job to keep your family safe. So a mom's job, or now a dad's job too, never ends. But more importantly, though, is that it was a family connection and people learned to work together. I remember television didn't come on until 6 o'clock at night, and
Really?
it started with the Huntley Brinkley report, which was NBC. And back then, news was just the facts, no opinions, no political slants,
Was
nothing.
Trump
It
not
was
on
just the
then?
facts. It was just the facts of what the news was at the time. And that would be for 30 minutes. And then for the children's benefit at 6:30, Howdy Doody would come on, which was a puppet show. And that would be for the children. So by 7 o'clock, we had to go to bed because then parents would stay up to watch those daring, naughty shows.
Night
Like
Rider.
I Love Lucy, I Marry June, where they had to share a bedroom. And that
Naughty.
bedroom had 2 beds, and they were fully dressed in their pajamas, bathrobes, and slippers. But they never slept together. But yet that was daring enough. So we grew up in a
Wow.
time where what we had to today study, what is morality, we didn't have to study it back then. It was part of everyday life, no matter what the religion was, no matter what your political preference was. People were living quantum collaboration without even knowing what the hell it was. You know, Hazel, you and I remember what Dubai was like.
Yeah.
I was there in 1990, and
Yeah.
so we were already doing diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah,
Because-
totally. Yeah,
because
when we were there, yeah.
140 nationalities were there
Yeah.
in 1990. Now it's 192. We were already practicing DEI before it was even
Yeah.
invented. As something you have to incorporate.
But I'm pleased about that because that's made me a different person than what I see going on in the States and the UK as well. Because I've understood that, and you'll understand that, Dr. Hamdan, that would have influenced me in what I'm like about different nationalities because I understand respect.
Yes, exactly, and we learn to appreciate other people. We learn to interact. I mean, how many places in the world can you go to a person of your nationality with people from different nationalities and eat Mexican food? And
Exactly.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
There's just such a connection. And
Yeah.
English was the spoken language because it was a business country,
Yeah.
but it was spoken with 140 different accents.
But
And
I'm one of the
everybody-
few, Dr. Hamdan, that can read and write Arabic because I took an interest in the culture, so I can still read and write it. My spoken isn't great because I don't understand I don't get the tenses all correct at the time, but I can
Yeah.
still read and write it.
Yes.
But I tried to make an effort when I was at school there to do that.
Yeah, some people used to jokingly say the United Arab Emirates is not the place to go to learn Arabic. Was everybody was speaking English because of
Yeah.
the business. They would send their children to Syria or Iraq,
Yeah.
and it was safe to learn how to speak Arabic.
Syria, yeah.
Because those were the more purified Arabic linguists.
Different
at the
days,
time.
eh?
So
Yeah.
the balance for life is work, play, love, and worship. So work is being productive and making a contribution to your community in different ways. Play is recreation, where you recreate non-stressful times to do hobbies or sports. You can either do it by yourself or you can join others to do that. Love is a sense of belonging. And there's 4 different kinds of love. The love of God is agape, the purest love. Then there is the love of friends, which is philos, which is where the word Philadelphia comes from, the city of brotherly love. And then there's eros, the romantic love, and then there's ekougenia, which is the family love. Well, these are important for people to realize. And the 4th one is worship. A lot of people assume that worship means religion. That is a part of it, but it doesn't have to be. Some people don't really go into organized religion. Some people are more spiritual, or some people don't acknowledge that, but still live the life of good and being good citizens. So what I've added into that worship part was also knowing yourself first, defining your own mission statement in life, knowing your uniqueness, and knowing your boundaries. By knowing yourself, knowing your uniqueness, knowing your boundaries, that means you learn to respect yourself and to be responsible to yourself first, accountable for yourself. Then other people will respect you. See, we're losing a lot of this today because media has now been raising children. And both parents are working, which is great because there's no reason that men and women shouldn't work. They're educated, they should work. But where's the time for the family? When I'm working in the correctional institutions as a consultant, 1/3 of the population are kids who should never have gotten here. But it's because they didn't have parental guidance that said this is wrong, this is right. And even when I was growing up, there was a debate, well, should you teach your children about your religion? And the answer is yes. It doesn't have to be right or wrong or good or bad. They have to have a foundation. And from that foundation, they can make their choice. You don't leave them in a vacuum to make a choice.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in Dubai, we never broke the law because we were told that's what will happen. Do you not think the States is a bit more lenient? I've been watching the, what they call Karens, the cops and arresting them. But in Dubai, we knew you did not cross any line or we would get arrested, but none of us ever did because we never crossed the line. And it wasn't really parental. They told you that's what would happen. But we knew ourselves, and it was taught at school. This will happen to you if you take drugs, do anything like that. We knew that we would be in jail, so we never did. Is that a factor as well? It's not all on the parents.
Yeah. The interesting thing about people today, though, is that what we used to live as everyday part of our natural upbringing, today our people are having to learn it. I remember about 15 years ago, one of the New York universities did a research, the sociology department did a research on the effects of opening the door for somebody. Now, the reason I chuckle about that, that's how we were raised. You know, when somebody is behind you, you open the door for them, especially when it's a woman, when it's an older person, or when it's an elderly man. You
That's
know,
normal, isn't it?
Today, you have to remind people, you know, wait a minute, when you walk through the door, why are you going in there first? And then you don't even hold it for the person that's coming in after you. What if a door smacks them in the head? You know, and I've seen that happen. People have learned to just be so selfish.
Yeah, there's no manners.
And it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. So the balance for life is not just what you can do for your everyday self. It's actually for your community. It's actually for your city, for your state, for your nation.
But that's normal. Do people need to be told that?
Well, it's amazing the new generations who've never had that. And I don't blame them because they never had the exposure to what is right and wrong. So a lot of the people that we worked with when I had a clinic in Dubai,
I was there.
Were young people.
Really?
Came in to actually learn social skills. And they were 28, 30, 35 years old, and they didn't have any social skills.
Was that Emiratis?
And they were being put in CEO positions, COO positions, CFO positions.
Wow.
They had no idea how to speak to people. Now, we were delighted that they came in to see us. We were delighted that they trusted us as a practice to come in to help them. But what was astonishing, this is not something just for people who may be on the spectrum, so to speak. It's for the everyday person.
Off burnout.
Yeah, it's for the everyday person that some people just don't have because they didn't grow up with it. So you can't blame them and say, well, it's your fault when you never learned it. You know, so balance for life, the balance for life actually helps redefine. Now, when we talk about what burnout is,
Sam's going to ask you some hard questions about this, by the way.
Okay, good. So what burnout is actually is a combination of stress and depression. It's a combination of depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety is actually stress. And then stress will lead to burnout. When stress becomes so great, it leads to burnout. Everybody has stress every single day of their life. Yeah. I'm having stress right now because I'm on the air with you. And even though I've been doing this for 40-some years, every single time the mic comes open, I've got to clear my throat.
Hey, talk nervous. To Dr. Phil.
And this is very normal. It doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing. It doesn't mean that
no, I understand
I'm anxious in social situations.
But it's not a good stress.
But it's very normal.
It's
very normal. So some people can handle one stressor and everything is fine. Some people can handle 100 stressors sometimes during that month and everything is fine. But some days you'll wake up in the morning and one stressor is just way too much. And it's one of those days you say, today's the day I should just stay in bed and pretend the world is not here. And it's because stressors come in different flavors. And what I'm saying is also, that's very important, is we do have a circadian rhythm. Both men and women have circadian rhythm. And women's circadian rhythm is not just daily, but it's monthly. On the average, women are 28-day cycles. Men are 33-day cycles. And it's becoming more and more aware. People
Really?
used to think it was just women. It's not at all. Men have very similar symptoms.
Did you know that, Sam?
No,
No, I
not
didn't.
about the men. No.
No, no, about the men. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but the good thing about men, we didn't blame it on the women. Women have menopause. They have mental illness. And they have meningitis.
Oh, I've never thought about it.
Are you kidding me? Did we name the man cycle woman Claus? I think that's more Santa Claus.
It was probably a man that named it, actually. The man called it menopause.
You know, I've never realised that. How sad is that?
Yeah. Okay. What time is the show over?
Whatever you want. That is fantastic.
Yeah. So the andro system is one where we study men's cycles, and it's 33-day cycles.
Never
And this
heard
can
that.
vary. And sometimes, men can handle one thing, and sometimes they can handle others, and others.
Oh,
others
that
can handle
explains,
one.
Dr. Hamdan, why you can't answer your calls or texts for a certain time of the month.
I'm not going to take credit for that, but you
And
go ahead and handle it.
I think each individual can handle a certain amount of stress, depending on the individual. But it's not
Yes.
about how much stress, isn't it? It's having that stress valve to be able to release some of that stress.
The safety
Yes.
valve, like a ship.
Yeah, or it'll just overflow.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So with balance for life, it's not just a psychological process, a psychosocial process. It also encompasses a lot of physiological, because we don't separate psychology from the human body anymore. Everything that happens, the way you think, the way you feel, your intuition,
It impacts your
what's happening
stomach.
with your body, it all
Yeah.
comes through the brain. It's all coming through the brain. And the brain is the central nervous system along with the spinal cord. And then you have the autonomic nervous system that comes from the spinal cord out into the body.
Yeah.
So everything is related. And the techniques that we teach when we do workshops and training programs in balance for life, actually is to get people to settle down physically, not just psychologically, because it does have an effect. Part of this is going on a diet. And one of the things I'll mention is we use this balance for life with children with ADHD. And with ADHD, a symptom of ADHD is learning disorder. You always have learning difficulties with ADHD, but the learning part is not a diagnosis. It is a symptom of ADHD. If it is, when we do differential diagnosis, whether it's originally a learning disorder or is it ADHD with learning differences, is the treatment. So if the treatment works for the ADHD, then if it is ADHD, the learning disorder goes away.
But then that also leads into teaching, Dr. Hamdan, because
Yes,
you
it
have
is.
you have to change the teaching to coincide
right.
with a child that has
Yes,
AD,
and sometimes-
short, sharp,
yeah.
yeah.
No, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
And
it's okay.
but sometimes the learning has to be project based.
Yeah.
We're seeing a
No, I
lot
agree.
more.
Yeah,
at
it
project.
has
You
to
got a
be
lot
quite
of
short, sharps. Yeah,
you get a lot of brilliant kids that get passed over because some places around the world don't understand learning disorders. They don't understand learning differences.
yeah, I understand that.
And,
Yeah,
and they're brilliant kids. They just can't learn with the symptoms, with the system, the educational system at hand. There's nothing wrong with the educational system. It serves 68% of the population. But what are you going to do with those who are below average in intelligence? And what are you going to do with those who are above average?
it's really
in
difficult
intelligence?
when you're in a classroom, and I can talk from experience, obviously, as a teacher.
Yeah.
But when you have these brilliant kids and they're ADHD, you've got to be fast for them and give them something creative to do. And let them figure something out, and then you've at the other end you've got children who don't understand what you're talking about. So because you keep children all in the same classroom,
Yeah, but what's
it's
interesting
really difficult.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're right on track with that, because what's been happening now with teachers is teachers who knew very little about learning disorders, because the world knew very little about learning disorders.
Yeah.
We're educated now to understand how to identify it and also how to handle it in the classroom. So one of the techniques was take the children who were geniuses or in the gifted range or superior
Talented,
range
yeah.
and have them become teacher assistants.
Yes.
That quieted them down, because a lot of these kids were actually very, very high level intelligence, but it
Do you
didn't
know that
show.
happens in the Middle East, but not in the UK?
So
Yeah.
around the world, balance for life is a way that you function in all factors
Yeah.
of your daily life. So with the learning disorders and with ADHD, what we came up with in our practice was we put the kids on a diet, despite the fact that the American Pediatric Association said no, diet does not affect. We
Yeah.
found that it does. But what we did, we had them on sugar-free, no additives, no carb. We lowered the carbs significantly, but it became a problem for the family. We did not let the family say, our child is in trouble, fix them. This became a family program. And we said we want the entire family to go sugar-free. No more sweets, no candies. You have a bowl of fruit and vegetables on the table, so when the kids want a snack, that's what they eat. It's
You
better to
did
have
this?
sugar. Yeah, and what we found was in 72 hours, those hyperactive behaviors, the overactive behaviors, went away. And what we also found is that parents were feeling a lot better. They said, you know what? I am so glad we did this as a family, because I'm thinking more clearly, I'm more sharp, I sleep better at night, I'm more alert at work, I can interact with other people much more calmly. It's amazing that what we eat actually can damage us or help us.
Dr.
And
Hamdan, do they have to be diagnosed with ADHD for that to work? Or
well, we're going to get into a political conversation if you want that one.
oh no, I just meant is
No,
it
no,
is
no. Look, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm happy to talk about it. What's happened in the United States, and I'll use the United States as a nation where we've seen the fall of democracy, not because there's anything wrong with democracy, is that sometimes you give too much freedom, and freedom can be too much, and this can be
Yeah.
too bad. And when an organization, whether they're political, whether they're economic, whether they're religious, whether they're anything,
he's
can
not
go
going to
up on
mention
Capitol
Trump, Sam,
can
in this
can
monologue.
go up on Capitol Hill and persuade Congress to change things. Well, what happened in the 80s? Pharmaceuticals got together, went up on Capitol Hill, and persuaded Congress to declare to make a decree that children with ADHD to come back into school would have to be taken Ritalin.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Now, what kind of demonic evidence do you think is going to come from that one?
Well, isn't that
But
the same as a date rape drug, almost? Because it just
Ritalin does a
numbs.
lot of damage. The reason that
Yeah.
people prescribe it is because it's been around for 60 some years now, and they know
It's
how to use it. They know how to
yeah.
prescribe it. They know the side effects. They know how to manage the side
I
effects.
had a kid on Ritalin, and it took his personality and everything away. It was
Well,
awful.
but
Yeah.
it also causes serious liver damage.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
and
Okay.
what we're seeing now is young little kids who have to be on Ritalin. They end up with liver damage by the time they're in teenage years. Now, it's not for everybody that's going to happen, but there's a large enough number, and even
Didn't
if it's
know
just
that.
one, it's one too much.
Wow.
And what we're seeing today, babies are born with liver problems, and the connection was not clear on, but it may be because of people that had been on particular medications.
Oh, right.
And you know, in my generation, when people were on, there's two drugs, and I can't remember the name of them, but whenever they would get married and have babies, their babies were likely to have a cleft palate.
Yeah, I
So
know which one you mean. I'm
I
trying to remember the name. Yeah.
yeah, So, what I'm saying is that when we get away from nature, when we get away from the balance of life, and that's going back to nature. I remember one of my younger brothers used to get boils when he was about 2 or 3 years old. And these are bumps that are filled with pus on the body. And my parents took him to Johns Hopkins, West Virginia University, places in Tennessee that specialized in this back in the 50s and early 60s. Nothing worked. All the medication in the world never worked.
Really?
So my parents were Lebanese immigrants.
So I know.
What would happen is my mother would write to her mother, and it used to take 21 days for the letter to get from West Virginia to the mountains of Lebanon. So by the time that somebody read the letter to my grandmother, and she would tell them in Arabic what to tell her daughter, my mother, it would be another 4 or 5 days to write up the letter and then mail back. That's 21 more days. So about 45 or 50 days later, my mother gets a letter saying, mix molasses with yogurt and honey and feed this to him. Within 2 weeks, he had no more boils.
Really? The natural
happened. They're also in Lebanon. There's Lebanon in the mountain is known for having pine trees. And back in the post-World War II, the treatment for tuberculosis was not medication.
Really?
There was a facility in the mountains of Lebanon called Hamden, and in this facility they did not treat with medication.
My dad's been there.
They were sitting among the pine trees, and it was discovered that pine trees have a medicinal cure on respiratory disorders.
No way. Pine trees?
Pine trees.
See, my dad's been to Lebanon, and he says it's beautiful. I don't know what it's like now.
But it happens anywhere else.
I've
it could
never
be happening
been.
in Southern California, too, where there's pine trees there. But the thing is, these are pure forests. They would have not been contaminated by human investment and industrialization. So the nature actually is a healer in itself. And you can't deny it because it works. Unfortunately, they didn't have the scientific methodology to record it.
Yeah.
But by word of mouth, by teaching your children, your grandchildren, and it goes on and on, because, my grandparents used to teach this or used to say this, and it worked brilliantly. So
amazing.
With family support, and when you have that kind of intervention, it's not just treating medically, but when you have that kind of intervention, it's amazing how people start to bond. And that's also a curing society of enemies. When you do something for somebody else, they can't be they're not going to be your enemy anymore. They can never be your enemy. When you do something for somebody else, you're not going to hurt them. And this is what happens when societies become to be split. And COVID taught us that. People were isolated, and they had no idea how to communicate anymore, face to face. It was either masked up, and then they had to remember, well, your eyes look familiar. I don't know the rest of your face, though. And when we were taking off the mask, people were starting to reunite back then, and it's coming back now in certain communities. So the balance for life, work, play, love, and worship, encompasses many, many things in life. It reduces stress, and it increases the human integrity of connectedness, and the human dedication of people helping people. When people help people, you don't have to have enemies. There's no enemies. I mean, look what's happening around the world. The wars around the world are not just between countries. Now they're inside of communities. Nations have become split.
Dr. Hamden, that doesn't make sense because Trump has got some enemies. Sorry, I'm just joking with what you're saying there, but we had talked about it the other night. Trump's not really working the friend thing quite well.
But what I've learned as an American of Lebanese descent, who has learned to be a good American from my Lebanese parents. They taught us about being a good citizen without prejudice. We didn't have the political or the religious prejudices. Even though Lebanon is like that today, that's not what my parents.
I know, yeah, I know. I've got loads of, I've got lots of Lebanese friends from working
you
there.
just like the tabbouleh and the hummus.
I do actually. I really do. I miss it.
Lebanese people are wonderful people as outside
They
of
are.
Lebanon.
They're beautiful. Yeah.
They make they thrive there. But what's interesting about this country that we've learned through the different kinds of administrations we've had, the brilliance of our forefathers developed a constitution that was so flexible. We withstand anything that's in the White House, on Capitol Hill, or in the judicial system.
Okay.
We survived it. We have survived it. We don't always survive it very well, but we survive it. The United States has not seen its fall yet.
It's coming.
it could very well.
In the next month or so.
Until then, if you look at what you learn when things are not so good, and you work on what is good, not focus on what is bad, that's actually getting a balance for life. What is good? Like, for instance, the family being on the same diet with their ADHD child. It was beneficial for the family. They were working together. Dad was having time to play with the kids, to take them out. There was time, and sometimes I tell parents, you don't have to be 100% there, but when you are there, have 100% time for your children. Yeah. And that has been a treatment in itself. When people come to me and say, there's something going wrong, our children are just misbehaving, they don't respect us. I say, what's your child's favorite color? I don't know. What's their favorite course in school? I don't know. I say, this is what I want you to do. Each child in your family, I want you to have 1 hour of undivided attention with them. Get out of the house. Do not say, I've got to go run an errand, come with me. That is not giving your child 100% attention. Go sit in the park. Go to the beach, wherever you need to go. And ask your child, whether they're 5 years old or 15 years old, what do you think about life?
That's great information, Dr. Hamdan, if it is an intelligent family, because what I've watched on the screens lately, coming from the States, it's nature and nurture. And if the parents are, or the mum who doesn't know who the dad is, are acting in a certain way, and you'll know from the cop shows, then the children become the same, because that's all they know. And the parents aren't going to sit in a park with them. They're teaching them to be almost so hard. I'm shocked at how the children will even treat the police in America. We wouldn't dare do that here. But they'll say, language that I'm not going to put on here, but if you watch it, and that comes from when you see the parents then turn up and they're the same, so the child has learned that. So it's great if it's good parents who will take them to the park and do all that, but if they're natured and nurtured from that environment, then I don't know what chance they have.
Yeah, and children are going to do what the parents tell them to do.
Yeah.
And if you tell your children, I want you to learn how to study and enjoy learning. I want you to understand information, and if you're not understanding it, I want to help you learn how to understand it, to apply it. So what you're doing when you say that to a child, you're not telling them you have to make good grades. What the hell does making good grades mean? When you tell your child you have to come home with straight A's, but you don't tell them how to make straight A's. And there's no such thing as straight A's. What is important in learning is loving
it's
to
subjective.
learn. What's important is loving to learn and learn how to learn. Learn how to take in information, understand it. Learn how to utilize that information and apply it to your community.
Could I just speak to Sam for 1 second? Sam, I have no nails at the minute because I've been trying to learn the guitar because I'm a Taylor Swift fan, and it is taking the skin off my fingers, broken my nails, but I'm trying. There you go, Dr. Hamden. I'm trying.
Good. That's the key. You can never go wrong for trying. You can go wrong for not trying because failure is not trying. And failure is not doing something wrong. It's learning how not to do it again. And that's
the expression. What is it? Oscar Wilde said. the definition of stupid is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Yeah.
So the right way to do it is keep trying until it becomes right. So again, the balance for life before burnout. A lot of people get burned out because they're overwhelmed and they don't have the kind of guidance or support. And it's what we see today. It used to be when a woman would have a child, either her mother or her mother-in-law or her sister or somebody would come and spend 40 days with her. Now, how did they know to spend 40 days with her? Because of trial and error. We know that what happens in the female body and also in the male body when a child is born, because dads have a reaction to it as well, but mostly it's predominant in female. There's an enzyme change that takes place. And if you've heard stories of the terrible pain of delivering a baby, but once the baby's delivered and put to the mom's breast, the pain goes away. And that's because there's an enzyme that switches in the brain that takes away, and she focuses on being mom. Well, the estrogen level is not there as high, but the progesterone level is, so she's not going to be as interested in being a wife. Now, dad is unconsciously competing for mom's attention as the husband.
No.
And mom has no interest whatsoever. So the dad tries to woos his way in.
Sam, really?
So there's a competitiveness that chooses this, and this is why the mother-in-law or the mother or a sister or somebody has to be there to help take care of mom so she can have the bed rest that she needs. But it's also to keep the husband at toe, to say, cool it, man, and then within 4 to 6 or 7 weeks, the mother's hormonal changes shift, and she's okay to be a wife again.
I didn't know that.
And
wow.
This is stuff that was known through how many millennia of practice as human beings. I mean, we've had a billion years of humans.
Yes, well, Dr. Hamden, my Chihuahua has never put that pressure on me. So I'm quite happy with her.
Okay.
My Chihuahua is brilliant. She's never upset with my dad or me. She's just happy to be fed and cuddled,
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. It's easier than a human baby. So the thing is that when we look at how to balance life, everybody's going to have a different way to balance their life. But the trueness is, and I'll say it with complete conviction, when you go back to nature, whether you call nature God or an energy source, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. When you go back to nature, you're going to find yourself a lot happier, not only with yourself, but others will be happier with you because you'll project that type of sensitivity, that kind of energy. When there's stress, there's a psychological barrier that we put up. So the balance for life helps us be able to do that every day there should be time for work, play, love, and worship.
But we don't give that time, do we?
No.
Not nowadays.
Sam's not feeling great today, but Sam would be an expert on talking about this because you struggle. You actually manage everything. I didn't mean struggle, sorry. It's just you're struggling today with your cold, but you have a lot on your plate and you manage it brilliantly. You're an inspiration to me.
No different to, and I suppose this is modern society, isn't it? It's no different to anybody else that has, full-time job, a family, all the challenges at home, pets, everything. I think it's everybody, isn't it? And I think that's probably why more and more people experience burnout, because they're just putting all this additional pressure on themselves. They think, okay, I can do this, I can do that, and people don't know how to say no either. So you take on board more and more and more, even though you've got no room to take additional things on board. So and then the reality
like this
is,
podcast, Sam.
No, no, no. I mean, the reality is then that stress valve doesn't get released and it
Yeah.
builds up, and then you get to all those levels, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's burnout, all come as a result of,
Yeah,
being
well,
too busy and have too much, and not having enough release with what Dr. Raymond Hamden said in terms of
yeah.
the work, play, love and the worship. You're not making time for those. You're only making time for probably one of those, the work. It's just constant.
Yeah, and Dr. Hamden, I can't thank you enough. That was, I mean, to me, that was absolutely brilliant. Everything you've shared with us, and you've done it, off your own back. And Sam, I'm sure you agree. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And if you've ever got free time again, we would more than love you back, because you're a star. So thank you so much, Dr.
Well, you're
Hamden.
very kind, and you're lovely hostess. Thank you so much, both of you, for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, we can't thank you enough. But
Well, next time, thank me by sending me over to Scotland so I can sit around with you girls and we can chat there.
oh, I'm sure
I'd
you
love
can
to
get
go
you.
there. I've been
She's
there
in,
several times on consulting
she's in
jobs.
Sam's in Nottingham. She's England.
Oh, are you? I'm
Yeah.
happy to go there
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
Nottingham Forest. um,
yeah.
yeah, you'll have to get your own ticket until we get some. Unless you send this to the right people, and then we get some advertising, then we'll get your ticket, won't we, Sam? And we'll go
I'm
out for a beer
sure.
with them.
I'm sure you are going to be very successful. You're wonderful hosts, and you got
But
a good energy.
but I really appreciate you doing this for us, Dr. Hamden.
My
Never would I have
pleasure.
thought. But I'll leave you to go back to sleep. All right.
Really, I'm going to work. It's Sunday, but I have to work today.
Okay.
Bless
So,
you. Thank
but I
you
have time
so
for
much for your
play,
time.
love, and worship.
It's
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to send him annoying messages and video stuff just to annoy him.